Hey everybody, we're back here in Founders Hall, and we're going to film a little piece about formatting an academic paper. For most of you, this is going to be review. Hopefully you just finished 101, but if not, you should know most of this, so we'll try to make it as simple as possible. When I'm talking about formatting your essays, what I'm referring to is what your papers look like physically when I receive them. So, I'm just going to cover some of the rudiments right now. You have a text document under the video formatting link also. I would like you to read that, and it will supplement this. But here we go. And we're going to assume that this is page 1 of your essay. And we look at the presentation here, and we understand a few things. The first thing is that you're going to double space everything in an academic essay. From the very beginning, your name in the right-hand corner, to the very ending of the last page, everything is double spaced. Make sure that you don't have gaps between your paragraphs. If you are working in Word, for instance, under the paragraph tab, you'll see a box. So you'll click on the paragraph tab, and there's a box that says do not add spaces. So highlight that, have everything double spaced, and it should be good to go with regard to your spacing. Okay, some basic things here. Every page will have your name and the page number in the upper right-hand corner. Only the first page will have the following information. First page only, left-hand heading, your name, my name, course and assignment, followed by the due date, with the day 1st, 19 May 2016. Again, this is all double spaced here. You will double space between the last part of the date and the title. You'll double space between the title and the body of the text of the essay. With regard to titles, please simply make it original, something born of the content of your essay. Please don't just say essay 1, for instance. Try to make it yours. Now, margins, 1 inch on both sides. Should be default. Again, that's covered in the text document you have under the video section, under this button. And then finally, very importantly, everybody's going to use the same font. It'll be a 12-point Times New Roman. We do that so that when I receive papers, that the length is the same for everybody. The font doesn't make it different, right? Make sure you have these elements in. I don't want to have to pay attention to them when I'm grading. They can only be negatives, okay, so do it and get it over with. Now, we're going to move over here to some more important things with regard to physical presentation of the essay. Over here on what I'm calling page 6, I'm assuming somewhere in the middle of your essay, we'll do a little drill on quotes. Regardless if you're using a short quote or a long quote, you will use a signal phrase for everything. So, academically, we do not start sentences with quote marks. In other words, this is something that I'll never see in an academic essay because I always have to have a signal phrase to introduce whatever quote you have. This quote might be from the newspapers, in your first essay, or it might be from anything. Regardless, when you're writing your essay, you will say, for instance, Jones notes. This can be your signal phrase, and then you can give your quote. And cite it. So please, remember to have a signal phrase for every quote that you use. Now, before the quote, you're going to either use a comma or a colon to introduce it. You'll use a comma if the signal phrase is not a complete sentence. You use a colon if the signal phrase is a complete sentence. So if I said, for instance, here, Jones notes the following, then I can use a colon to introduce it. More importantly, MLA divides up quotes into two types based on length. Short quotes are things that are less than 4 typed lines, and long quotes are quotes that are longer than 4 typed lines, and they're handled differently. The example that I gave right here would be considered a short quote. Short quotes simply go in the paragraph, and when you're done with them, you just continue writing. The citation at the end of a short quote is done like this in most instances. You will have the author's name and page number. However, if the author's name is given in the signal phrase, only the page number is required. In some cases, if you're using an electronic source, sometimes there are no page numbers, but just make sure that you give the title of the article and or the author's name in the signal phrase, and that takes care of it. Because all this really is, this information, the name and the page number, is a reference to the entry in the works cited page. So this is a short quote that goes in the paragraph. Long quotes, again, are quotes that are longer than 4 typed lines. Long quotes will be set off in a separate box in the middle of the page. Now, I can use the same signal phrase, and instead of just giving the quote, now, if it's a long quote, I will press return, and then I will type the quote in a little box that looks something like this. When I'm done with the quote, I will cite it as such, and then just continue writing. So long quotes, again, are more than 4 typed lines. This one is about 4.5. You're going to indent twice on the left-hand side. So this will be a total of 10 spaces. And over on the right-hand side, it's a jagged margin that's about equal with the right-hand margin. Right? So if you indent 5 for a paragraph, for a regular paragraph, for a long quote, you will indent 10 on the left-hand side. You can see some sample papers at the NLA Purdue OWL website if you want to look at them, but this is pretty simple. 10 spaces for a long quote on the left-hand side, jagged right-hand margin about equal to the regular margin of the paragraph above it. I want to make a couple of notes about long quotes. The first one is long quotes do not require quotation marks because they're in a box. And then secondly, long quotes have the period before the parentheses, and the reason is because there are no quotes. So at the end of a long quote, you're going to have the period and then the citation. Okay. So that's how you differentiate short from long quotes in MLA form. You'll be using both in every essay. So give a signal phrase for, it doesn't matter if it's short or long, but make sure that you format it appropriately when it's typed. Now, the final thing that I'm going to show you here with regard to formatting is your works cited page. So, I'm sure you're familiar with this. This is an alphabetical list of all the sources that you cite in the body of your essay. I cited Jones in the body of my essay. So over here, I'll have to give the bibliographical information about the text that Jones wrote. This is a map that helps the reader understand where all the information comes from so the reader can verify that information. So this works cited page will be done in alphabetical order. Again, you should know how to do it from having 101, but you can also refer to the MLA OWL website. There are 87 different ways to cite your sources, and I can't list all of them. Most of them are pretty simple though. We'll use the example of a book, right? If you have a book by Jones, and his name is Nick, for instance, the title of his book is ABC. This would be put in italics, but I can't do that on the board. I would give the name of the author, right? That's always first. The second thing is the title. Name and title. The third thing that I will add is the place of publication, New York. I'll indent 5 spaces, and I will give the publisher, Random House, and the year, followed by the word print. Very simple. So these days, this is how a paperback book would be cited. Name of the author, title of the book, in italics, not underlined, place of publication, publishing house, year of publication, and then at the end, for every citation, you'll put print or web. If you say web, that means it's an electronic online source. You don't need to use the whole URL anymore, the whole website address, the HTTP. All you have to do is write the word web if it's an electronic source. For you guys, especially in your first essay, you'll be using lots of newspapers. So I suggest that you check out the OWL website and you'll see how to cite newspaper articles. It's very straightforward. In most cases, it depends on if you have 1 or 2 authors or where it's located, but in most cases, it's just going to be author, okay, and then title of the article in quotes, followed by the name of the newspaper. This would be in italics. And after you give the name of the newspaper, over here, you're going to give the page information. For instance, it's page A17. If this is a print source, you'll give the page number, A17, and then the date it was published, okay? At the end of that, you would put print. Now, again, there are many different ways to do it depending on what the article is, where it's located, etc. If it's a web source, it's slightly different because in web sources, you don't give the page information. There isn't any. So I just want you to check it out. If you have any questions, you can email me and I'll specify for you, but it's all there under the Purdue OWL website. When you're in the Purdue OWL website, just simply look under Works Cited Citations, and you'll have an example for everything that you have. All right, so that's our simplified breakdown of how to format a paper. Again, I hope it's review for all of you that you just freshly came out of 101, that you've been dealing with MLA for a long time. With regard to MLA, I want to grade your content, guys. I really want to read your ideas. So these are things that I want you just to do smoothly and get on to the business of writing. I certainly don't want to punish you or mark down your papers unnecessarily because you didn't double space. So we'll get this out of the way and get to writing good essays. To me, this is not so important as your ideas, and I want that to be clear, but I still want you to honor it by trying your best to get it right. All right, thanks. And for our next video, I'll look a lot better and a lot less tired, I promise. See ya.